you saw last week's post video, whatever, we're not getting the exclusive Record Store Day titles this year, but we are putting out over 600 used records instead, all coming from the same collection. And so today I just want to reiterate that we're not participating in Record Store Day proper, and kind of show some highlights from this collection and what is going to be available Saturday at 11 a.m., Saturday the 22nd, and give you an idea for what the collection consists of, see if it's, something that butters your bread or not, and, kind of get into some of the backstory of how this collection found its way to us. So let's just jump straight into that. This is a collection from a woman named Janet Laylor. She found us just walking around downtown, showing some of her friends from out of town, kind of the revitalization that's happening down here and what's going on, and walked past the store and thought, oh, I've been meaning to sell these records, and it might be a lot easier to sell them to this guy instead of doing them all myself. So she calls, we talk on the phone for a little bit, and immediately I could tell that, the person on the other end of this call was, a really interesting person with interesting tastes and eclectic tastes. Of course, it's going to entice me hearing, some of the names referenced that we'll get to in a second. So made an appointment to go look, see this big shelf of records surrounded by lots of different stereo equipment, reel-to-reels, turntables, stuff like that, stuff that we didn't acquire at this time, but maybe later. Lots of laser discs too, so if anybody needs any laser discs, you let me know. I've got the plug on the laser discs. But anyway, so immediately, of course, I start going through the collection and I'm checking it out, and I immediately start seeing really interesting titles. I'm seeing some of the kind of bread and butter stuff as well that you would expect in any kind of record collection from the time, but then also some kind of stranger outliers, and was immediately just like, who is this person? Where did they come from? This is not stuff we normally see in South Texas. This is really, really interesting. I'm going to have to find a way to get my hands on this. We start talking, going back and forth. If you saw the last video and why we're not doing Record Store Day, I'm not exactly like, flush with cash at the moment. But, the more that Janet and I talked, the more that we kind of, I think, realized that we were kind of on the same wavelength as far as, why we do the things that we do and what's important to us. And so this was several months ago when I first saw the collection, so we kind of came to an agreement about how we wanted to go about things. And so a couple of months later, after corresponding back and forth for a while, the collection came into the shop. I went and picked it up, and now I'm just going through and cleaning and pricing everything and making sure that it's all good to go for this Saturday. But a really incredible person with a very, very interesting life story, a very accomplished life story. She's done amazing things throughout her career, but also there are a few other stories that I'll tell once we get to at least one other main story that always kind of jumped out at me from the moment I met her. But it's just really, really cool to see all of these records in one place. So as I'm leaving, she, I'd been geeking out over a couple of things, and she was like, I know we're going to be able to work something out, so I want to send you home with something today, even though, you're not going to come pick up the whole collection for a couple of months. And I was like, oh, no, it's all right. She was like, no, I want you to you can pick any record that you saw for your personal collection. And, it's my gift to you. And I was like, whoa, that's wild. And so there were a couple that were obviously very enticing. But I didn't go for the highest dollar one. I didn't go for the rarest one. And I should have brought it with me now that I'm telling this story. It's at my house on my turntable. But she gifted me an original pressing of Morton Subotnick's Silver Apples of the Moon, which is one of the earliest electronic records, electronic music put to record, original compositions that was recorded on the Buchla synthesizer in the late 60s. But it's a record that I've wanted for a really long time. It's really, really out there. Not like switched on Bach or anything like that. It is very experimental, and I came to know about it after watching the documentary I Dream of Wires, which is about the invention, popularization of the synthesizer, and it takes you all the way back from like the Moog semi-modular, massive, gigantic synthesizer, and the Buchla, which kind of ran in parallel a little bit, going all the way to the DX7, and then coming all the way back around again to, like, if this is for all the synthesizer nerds, but back to modular synthesis again. So I'd always really wanted this record, and had never really stumbled upon it, and there it was in front of me. So, picked that one up, and she was like, I knew you were going to go for that, for this one. And so, yeah, she had me figured out pretty quick. But really, really fantastic person. And, she's been collecting, this collection started when she was 7. So she's been collecting for, like, I think 60 years, something like that, give or take. And it's really rad, really, really cool to meet someone like this, to get to know them a little bit, for them to get to know me a little bit, and to then, on their own accord, say, you seem like somebody that really cares about this, and that, you're going to find like-minded people that are interested in this type of music. And, what she told me is, she was like, it's time, I've had a lot of time with these records. It's time for someone else to enjoy them. So that's really, one of my favorite things about this job, is getting to take something that someone has loved and cared for so long, and put it in the hands of a new generation, or a new home of somebody who was also going to care and enjoy it as much as she did, or as much as the original owner did in any case. But in this case, Janet, where these records came from. So shouts out Janet. Again, can't say enough about her. It's been really, really enjoyable to kind of get to know her through these records, and just through conversation as well. So I've rambled long enough. Let's get into the records. Now, I have a stack here of probably only 40 to 50 of the over 600 records. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, there's a lot of stuff. And this video would be even painfully longer than it already is if I tried to show you everything. But also because there are a lot of records by the same artists. You could tell that there were certain artists that she really locked in with, and bought a lot of their records. So I'm not going to show you every single Beatles record that's in this collection. You've seen those, but I'll show a few and talk about that a little bit. But, things like that, where it's like, I could show you all of them, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to show you a few. And then, we can go on to some other stuff. But the very first thing that jumped out at me when I started looking through this shelf was the massive amount of Brian Eno. There was so much Brian Eno, early Brian Eno. Then we have, some more popular mainstream Eno, like this one. Maybe, not sure, possibly all the ambient stuff, I think. I'm still in the process of pricing everything out right now and cleaning everything, so haven't gotten through all of it yet, but I've seen at least 3 of the ambient, including this one. All right, so lots of Brian Eno stuff, Frippen Eno as well. So, some of that kind of ambient electronic stuff is in there. Very, very cool. There's a lot of proggy stuff as well. Prog, psych, full psych. Not a ton. You'll kind of see what the large chunk of this collection is, but really the stuff that's in there is really good. So obviously there's a good chunk of King Crimson. I mean, you already heard me mentioned Robert Fripp, so obviously that's going to be in there, but not just like the Scary Screamy Man, but some of the other mid stuff, not mid as in quality, but like era, stuff as well. What is this one, 73? And then there's a few other King Crimsons in there as well. There's a couple Gentle Giants, big fan of this. Octopus as well. It's the US pressing, not the import, which has the cooler cover, but still good stuff. This one is an import. UK import, Caravan, highly slept on in my opinion. Prog band with a little psychedelic tinge to it. And then we've got the cheerful insanity of Giles, and Fripp. Again, Robert Fripp rearing his ugly head once again. Janet told me some stories about having met Fripp back in the day, and that's all I'll say about that. She can tell you more if she wants. But yeah, so this one, import. I've never had the US pressing, but the cover's not nearly as fun. And then, so this was the one when she told me that, she's like, hey, pick any record you want for your personal collection. She told me, she was like, I knew you're either going to pick the Silver Apples, the one I picked, or this one. I couldn't tell which way you were going to go. So there's this one, 50-Foot Hose, Cauldron, and so it's an original pressing. We've had reissues of this in the shop, but never had an original. But not only is it an original, it is a promo copy, and Limelight did the yellow label promo, not the white, so that is very cool. Comes with the printed inner sleeve and everything. Vinyl's real nice, so that's really exciting. I mentioned Janet's affinity for hi-fi when I mentioned all the hi-fi gear that was surrounding the shelf of records, so it's of no surprise that there's a good deal of audiophile records. So, Billy Joel, Half Speed Master. Fun fact, Anthony's song, aka Moving Out, parentheses Anthony's song, my go-to karaoke song every single time. So we've also got some MoFi stuff before they were digital, whatever. We're not going to get into that. So we got Supertramp, original master recording. We have got Dark Side of the Moon. This is a big one for the MoFi folks. And then we've got some, Mike from the In Groove. I know I've seen him talk about how terrible these Nautilus pressings are, but I disagree. Pretty decent. So that's the majority of the audiophile stuff. Don't think you're going to find a whole U-Haul box full of audiophile stuff, but those are noteworthy ones, I feel. Good titles that people look for, people ask for, especially that Dark Side of the Moon. Whatever. All I need to say about that, like I mentioned earlier, there's a good amount of Beatles stuff and some Beatles solo stuff. Not a ton of the John Lennon solo stuff, which is fine. He's the third best Beatle. And no, I won't. That's not debatable. But there's a ton of Beatles stuff, but, one that's always kind of noteworthy is the White Album when, you got the serial number still on there. And then as far as solo stuff goes, we got a lot of Paul stuff. This being probably one of his better solo records, but there's also Wildlife and Ram and McCartney 2. And then we've got some George Harrison. No All Things Shall Pass or Must Pass, I can't remember which one it is, but, we do have the Concert for Bangladesh, and there's a few other Harrison solo records as well, so, you'll find some Beatles stuff, some of the solo work, and there's other stuff in there too, of the classic rock kind of variety, Queen. There's more Pink Floyd that's not audiophile pressings. Lots of Elton John, things like that, some of the more kind of like staple records, like I said earlier, that kind of every collection from the 70s and 80s would kind of have. So you'll find some of that stuff. And then, there's some soul in there as well. We've got this Roberta Flack one that I pulled. Really like her, but there's also a Booker T and the MGs record and a couple of other really solid soul records. Some interesting stuff like this, Debbie Harry solo. Don't see this one a ton. This one's really clean too, which is nice. more stuff that falls into like the kind of solo record category. We've got Donald Fagen, Night Fly. This is a really sought after record that you just don't see all the time. Sometimes, not all the time. And then there's a good sturdy helping of Joni Mitchell, but of course this one is always one of the more noteworthy, one of the less common, and always worth noting when a copy of it comes in. We also have some fun soundtracks. Again, not a ton of soundtracks, but these were two of my favorites that I found. This one being Young Frankenstein. Woo-hoo-hoo, baby! Dune. Which this one makes sense, you know, the collection having the Eno kind of tinge to it. So, Dune, original copy. And last but not least, there's a good amount of classical. Now, I don't know a damn thing about classical music for the most part, but this one is, so there's some John Cage stuff. If you don't know John Cage, modern classical composer, just Google it, because check the Wikipedia, because the guy has done too much for me to really be able to sum up concisely in this video, nor am I enough of an authority on him to do so. But there's some John Cage, there's some Keith Jarrett, there's some other kind of neo-classical, modern classical type of stuff. But the reason I wanted to show this one is because of that right there. Signed John Cage record. There's another signed John Cage record, and this one is what I referenced earlier, that there's another story. So Janet got these signed when she interned with John Cage. She interned with him for a summer. I don't remember the year. Actually, I don't know if she told me. But when she was younger, interned with him, I think she said that she was the only woman in his program at the time. And he had her play the cactus. And some of his performances from that time. She played the cactus with John Cage, had him sign these. There's at least one or two other signed records that are not John Cage. But very, very interesting stuff. I mean, I could count on one hand, if there's even anything to count at all, how many John Cage releases or, you know, records we've had in the past. So it's really cool to see that. You know, some of the Keith Jarrett stuff comes in from time to time, but there's a lot of it. And, you know, again, I didn't show more of the bread and butter stuff, but I mean, I do have an Elton John right here. And there's, you know, certainly Fripp solo stuff that's in there as well. You know, some James Taylor, more Pink Floyd, things like that. I have a stack that I'm pricing right now that has some of your more run-of-the-mill stuff, like, you know, Thunderball soundtrack. We've got Fripp and Eno, Tumbleweed Connection. Here's the Wildlife I talked about. Some Harold Budd, Mahogany Rush. You'd love to see it. Gato. Again, more Pink Floyd. There certainly is a lot to look through, much more than what I have shown, especially if you're a classical head. There's a lot of Dutch gramophone stuff, but again, I just don't really know that stuff well enough to be able to, you know, show you like the cool stuff, the interesting stuff, because I don't really know what that is. To be honest, classical is not an area of expertise for me, but ton of cool stuff. And if you made it this far in the video, I'm here to also tell you that we are going to be having a sidewalk sale as well, doing like the 50-cent LP thing. Going to dig in the vault, aka my storage unit, and bring out, I don't know, 500, 1,000 LPs, maybe, easily 1,000 45s, I'd say. 45s will be like a quarter each, so we'll be doing that as well. And yeah, so definitely an unreasonable number of records to dig through this Saturday. So hope to see you there, and come, you know, check out this collection, and let's find some of these pieces loving new homes where they will be enjoyed. And that's really all I got for you today. I know it's kind of a long video, but there's a lot to say, a lot to go over. And one last thing. These records from this collection are not going to be available online for some time. Right now I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe a month at the earliest that these will be available on our website. So we really want to, find good South Texas homes for these records. And really have a kind of personal relationship with the people that they end up with. I know that that's important to Janet, that, it's not anonymous, people online that are buying, or maybe just buying them to flip, or, she feels strongly, and I, as I always do, feel strongly that these records go to people that want to listen to them, which is crazy to say, that's even like something to think about, but how things are when a certain collectible gets hot. There are record collectors out there that see it as an investment. We want these to go to music collectors. We're music collectors. Most of our customers are music collectors and enjoyers and appreciators. So that's really, kind of our mission here all the time, but especially with this collection as well. It being, trusted to us in this way. So thank you, Janet. Appreciate it. It's an honor and a privilege. And thank you, everybody who supports us, been sticking with us, and who's been rocking with us for the past 7.5 years. And excited to see everybody on Saturday. Keep an eye on the socials for more info, and we'll see you later.